Hi, everybody. My name is Noah. I'm one of the educators with Shortcuts, and today is actually the start of our advanced session on our classroom series. So, previously this year, we started a series of basic classes in Shortcuts, sort of get you up to speed if you haven't used the system, or if you're new to Shortcuts, you're perhaps a manager or an employee and you're still trying to figure out Shortcuts. We're going to be starting some advanced sessions on things that we've learned about. So if you haven't sat through the appointment book basics, you can find it on our YouTube channel. And I'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. But today we're going to be looking at some more advanced features of the appointment book, how to configure it, how to use it, in case your business is interested in making some more changes to the system. So as with other presentations, this is going to be about 30 minutes. We are recording this session, so if you have to drop out, that's okay. We'll send you a copy of the recording later. And of course, if you're watching this recording after the fact, you will have the ability to reach out either on email or social media or give us a call in case you have questions on what we covered in this session. Also, if you have any questions, try to save it to the end and we will review everything we talked about. So for today's session, Advanced Appointment Book, we're going to learn a few things. Working with service blocks, how to set up resources, and using the appointment assistant or the waitlist. Now, most of you are hopefully familiar with the basics of the appointment book. We previously talked about making appointments, moving appointments around, all of that. Now, if your business would like to have greater control over how appointments show up in the appointment book, that is when you want to consider working with service blocks. Now, some businesses, they prefer to have one solid block of time. So customers do not double book, they don't perform services in the middle. And that's fine. That works for a number of our customers. But of course, if you have a very efficient staff and they can do haircuts in between while color is processing or while a chemical is processing, then you might want to open up that part of the appointment book so it's easier for either your staff or your front desk to put an appointment in that place. So to do that, you want to actually use blocks. So in your service setup, you're going to choose first block and second block and then decide how you're going to break apart the service. So in the example I'm going to do, we're going to talk about a color service and then how to set it up so that you can put a service in between during the processing time. So let's actually do a live demo. So I'm going to go into Shortcuts right now, get out of the presentation and into Shortcuts. So if we look, we actually have a color service here for Lynn and its highlights. And you'll notice there is a gap in between from the application to the finishing. So if your business has a color service and it's just one solid block of time, let's pretend it's this one, and we want to break it apart. To do that, I want you to go to Setup on the right side in your menu and Services. So you're going to select any service that you decide you want to break apart. So let's assume it's balayage, for example. Right now, it's one solid 90-minute block of time on my appointment book. So if I want to change it, I'll select that row on my service menu, and then I will press the Details button at the bottom of the screen. So once we are here, in the first block, this is how Shortcuts displays information on the appointment book. The balayage, let's say it's actually about 30 minutes of application and 30 minutes of processing time. So during that processing time, while the customer is waiting, I could do a quick haircut. So now that I've broken the service apart, you see so far we have about 60 minutes that we accounted for. On the next row, I'm going to call the second block the finishing block. And I will say that is 30 minutes to finish. And this has a 0-minute break. The sell price is included in the first line. So I do not necessarily have to put a second sell price. I'll just set it to 0, 0 cost, and 0 points. Now, you don't want to leave these other columns blank, even if you're not necessarily reporting on them. Set them to 0. And then once I press done, if I go to book a balayage, shortcuts will, instead of having one solid block of time, and I'll say we're going to add a new client, and let's say Mary comes in, and we get a number. Oh, I possibly added too many numbers. There we go. So Mary comes in, she's a new client, and she's going to get a balayage. And there it is. The first portion, where it's the actual application, is 30 minutes, and now there's a 30-minute gap in between before she finishes. So if I were to choose a service that's just 30 minutes, let's say this styling, perhaps I have an updo that I can finish in 30 minutes, I can drop it in between. So depending on your business, breaks can be invaluable for helping book up your salon, book up your staff, and optimize your efficiency. Another thing to consider, if you have a spa package, or if you're a barbershop and you have a barber package or a salon package, and it actually includes multiple services, you can actually create that using the block system as well. So for example, in my pretend salon, I have basic services: color, facial, haircuts, massage, etc., etc. So I decide I want to create a special spa package. So I will select the word business at the top and press new. And I will create a new category: spa packages. Now I want to make sure that I'm reporting into this category. So when I run my reports, I know how many packages I've sold. So at the bottom of the screen on the bottom right, I will select reports category, and I'm going to label one of my categories. I'll take report number 7, and I'll call them spa packages. Packages, no, packages. There we go. So I have the name of a category and I have the name of a report. Now I'll select the service category spa packages and press new. So the first one, let's say I'll call it the bridesmaid. So what does this actually entail? So this is a multi-block service. The first block, for example, it will be a color. And of course, you can set it to whatever you want. I'll say it's not really, we'll say it's a whole color service, 90 minutes. Now I could put the entire price of the package on the first line, or I could break it apart line by line if I choose. So I'll just put the whole price up at the top. So I'll say it's $450. But what does that include? So the color plus the haircut, and the haircut will be 60 minutes, 000 again. The third block will actually be a manicure, and that will be 30 minutes. And perhaps I want to do an updo, and the updo will be 45 minutes. So this is an incredible price at any site. So now I want to make sure that Shortcuts is tracking this. So I can select the first block, the first row here, and I can say technically this counts as a spa package. However, to be fair for the staff and to be fair for my reporting, it also counts as a color service. Then I would select the second row, haircut, and I would say technically this counts as a haircut service. Then I would select the third block and say this counts as a nail service. And finally, I would select the fourth block, and I would say this counts as a styling service. So now my reports will be very accurate on who performed this particular package, how much time did they take, and what were the specific services. So as you can imagine, whether you're a salon, a spa, or a barbershop, you can begin to assemble your own packages. Some of the barbershops I work with, they'll do things like the gentleman, the executive, the royal package, and they'll have different services in here. So again, I'll go color here and then press done. So now if somebody were to book the bridesmaids package, let's say for Andy, somebody comes in and we'll search for an existing customer. Jen comes in and she is a salon client and she is going to take advantage of the bridesmaid package. Now, by default, Shortcuts will assign all of the services to that employee. But as you notice, every block is a separate service. So technically, I can select that second or third or fourth block and assign it to a different employee. So Andy doesn't necessarily do the manicures. We'll say Joe does the manicures. And I'll actually drop it at about the same time. And then the updo can actually be performed by Joe as well. So when the customer pays, Shortcuts will remember which services were performed by Andy and which ones were performed by Joe. And that is how you actually work with multiple blocks and how you also separate them by putting a break time in between if you'd like to optimize your efficiency. So let's jump back to the presentation. And here we are. So the other thing, working with resources. So if your business actually has dedicated rooms, dedicated chairs or tables to perform a service, you want to set resources. This way it's easier for your staff, easier for your front desk to make sure the right services are being performed in the right locations. So let's say you have a manicurist and they have one or two tables available. You don't want to overbook them. So to do that, you set up what's called a resource. And resources can be assigned services so that Shortcuts will actually help guide the staff and make sure the right service goes into the right location. And it will warn the staff, is this location available? Is it booked right now? Is there another resource available that you can use? So let's actually talk about it. How do you set that up? So for my business, again, we have a manicurist. And we want to make sure if somebody chooses a pedicure, that we're going to be able to choose the pedicure throne. Now, if you've never configured it, just follow along. On the right side, we're going to set up and we'll scroll down on our list. And we have what's called resources. It's this little door with a room. Now, I've already created it, but I will delete this and then walk you through the process. So the first thing you actually do, at the top of the screen, you're going to go to resources. And this is where you tell Shortcuts, what are the specific chairs or tables that you set aside for this? In my case, I press new and I've already labeled two of them. I have two pedicure thrones, so I can have a maximum of two customers getting their pedis done at the same time. So I'll have create pedicure throne 1 or 2. So in your business, you may have massage table, you may have a tanning bed, whatever that is, and you label them. And you can even put a color on them so that you can differentiate them on the appointment book. So I've created my two resources. Now I need to tell Shortcuts, how am I grouping these together? Are all pedicure services being done in all locations, or all massages, or all tannings all done in the same place? Chances are they're not. Chances are they're done in separate rooms. So I will go to resource categories and then start separating these or grouping them. I'm going to press new and I'm going to label my category pedicure, or in this case, pedicure room. So now that I have a category name, I need to tell Shortcuts which resources and which services can be performed here. So at the bottom of the screen, I will choose resource. So I would choose my pedicure thrones 1 and 2 and add them. So in this case, I would exclude massage tables or tanning beds or anything else. So now that I've added them to my resource, Shortcut says, okay, now that I know how many chairs or tables you have in this room, what services are supposed to be performed here? So I would go to the service screen or the service button. I would choose my nail services. So I'm not going to worry about the manicures. Those can actually be done in the regular chairs. I'm just going to choose the pedicure. So I'll select pedicure and then press add. So now Shortcuts recognizes I have a very special 2 chairs in which this service can be performed. So how does it look on the appointment book? So I'll choose the 10:30 time for Andy, and I'll choose somebody else. Who else comes in? So Mike Smith comes in. And again, he's a salon regular. And he is going to get a pedicure. As soon as you choose a service that requires a resource, Shortcuts will show you this window and it'll ask you, okay, which location is Mike going to go into? Is he going to go into Throne 1 or Throne 2? Once you select it, then you can press Done. Now you notice on the resource window, there are 2 columns on the left. One, is this resource available? So is this room or is this chair open? A green check mark means yes, a red X means no. The second column is more important. Is this location suitable for this service? So if I had a massage room and a massage table, chances are the massage room would be green for available, but red for not suitable. You're not supposed to do pedicures in the massage room. But in this case, I have 2 green check marks. Everything lines up. I can select it and then press Done. So now it shows me Mike is getting his pedicure, and it has a red stripe on the left side of his appointment to let us know that is the resource that it falls into. Now, if somebody tries to use the same resource at that same time, I'll go to Sam, for example, and who else is getting a pedicure? Let's see, who else? There we are. So go to Robert Pacino. So you'll notice for Robert, as soon as I chose the pedicure, Shortcuts gave me another clash. Now this has nothing to do with resources. This has to do with capabilities. Andy is the only person on my staff that knows how to do nail services. And I just tried to book this service with a different employee. So Shortcuts will warn me, hey, Joe's not supposed to do this. Andy is available. I can see the green check mark next to his name. So I should choose him. However, Pedicure Throne 1 is not available at this time. Pedicure Throne 2 is available at this time. So we sort of have a couple of conflicts, and Shortcuts is just trying to guide me, or in this case, guide the staff, to make sure they choose the right employee and the right resource. So if your business has a number of chairs, rooms, tables, specific resources that you have to take advantage of and make it easier for your front desk, make sure that you're using resources and capabilities as well. Now, capabilities does synchronize online, so it will help customers, or it will prevent customers from booking the wrong employee for the wrong service. In this case, if a customer were to try to book a pedicure online, Andy will be the only employee who shows up to do that service. So I will cancel this appointment so there are no conflicts. Now remember, if you're using an older build of Shortcuts and you go under the setup button and you do not see a resources link, it might be time for you to get an upgrade. So this was something that was available in, I believe, our tier 2 or tier 3 packages only. Also, I am using Shortcuts 8.1, which is the newest build. So your buttons may look a little bit different. If you do have one of our spa packages, you should see resources and you should be able to follow along. So let's go back to the presentation and let's continue. So we've talked a little bit about separating our services into blocks to maximize our efficiency. We've looked at working with resources to help the front desk schedule the right rooms and the right services. The third advanced thing that we're going to learn today is how to work with the appointment assistant, aka the waitlist. Now, on the bottom right of your appointment book, you may have noticed there's something that looks like a magic wand. A lot of the people that I've worked with that have never really used shortcuts or haven't really paid attention to that little wand often just overlook one of the most important features of the appointment book, and that is a tool designed to help your front desk look for an opening, especially as your business starts to get busier and busier. So let's talk about putting people on the wait list, searching for an opening. So let's get out of the presentation again and directly into shortcuts. So for this example, I'm going to say I have a customer and I will purposefully block out a little bit later this day. So I do not see any openings. So I'm going to push Mike down a little bit. So as I can see, from about 11 o'clock through about 4 o'clock, it's really hard to get an opening. And I'm even going to cover up some of these services with other services just to make it even harder to find an opening. Okay, so between 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock, it's very hard to find an opening. So you have a customer and they have to get a haircut today, or they have to get whatever service today. And perhaps that appointment they want to have with Sam. And unfortunately, you say, sorry, Sam is booked from about 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock today, and you can come in later today. And the customer says, no, I can only come in between 12 and 2 during my normal lunch hours, and I have to be able to have my haircut during that time. We say, unfortunately, he's completely booked from that time. So the customer says, okay, can you put me on the wait list? So if Sam has a cancellation, I can get my haircut sometime this afternoon? Absolutely. So to put a customer on a wait list, whether it's for one day or whether it's for multiple days, follow along. On the bottom right corner, I want you to hit this little magic wand, the appointment assistant. Now, by default, the appointment assistant actually tries to find an opening whenever the business is open for the next 3 months. So if I were to choose a client and choose a service, Shortcuts will absolutely identify the next opening you have, whether it's from today going to the next 3 months. But we want to be very specific. So I'm going to choose the clients button, and I'm going to choose the name of a customer. So George calls up. George is a salon regular. So I selected my customer. On the next row, I'm going to choose from when to when. Am I going to search for the next 3 months? No. I'm going to search from today to today. So Shortcuts, again, will check for this entire business day, is there an opening? Not necessarily. The customer says whenever that happens, whenever his appointment is, he only is available between 11 and 2. So I'll choose 11 to 2 p.m. Are there any openings? So I've selected the customer, I've selected the day we want to search for, and I've selected what is the window of opportunity. On the next row, I will choose services, and I will choose men's haircut. Now, right now, Shortcuts will actually search, is anybody on staff available between 11 and 2 to do a haircut? Perhaps they are, perhaps they aren't. George is very particular. he has only one stylist that he wants to get his haircut by. So I will select the employee column and I will say Joe. So I've given Shortcuts all of the criteria that the customer requires. He wants a haircut, he wants it today, this afternoon, and he only wants a haircut with Joe, nobody else. So if I tell Shortcuts, search for an opening at the bottom of the screen, it actually found one. There is an opening at 12:30. There's a 15-minute window, and it can book it in right now if I want. And let's say this service wasn't available, I can also put him on the wait list. And that wait list is on the bottom of the screen. So I'm actually going to put George on the wait list. So I'm going to take away those 15 minutes where a haircut can normally be done. So I actually meant to choose Sam instead of Joe. So on the bottom of the screen, customers that are on the wait list go to this little hourglass icon. And you can look at all of the requests for today. And in this case, George is waiting for a haircut. I can go into the schedule and say, okay, is there anybody available or was it for Joe? I'll say it was for Sam instead. I'll search and there are no times for Sam, so I'll keep him on the wait list. So George is going to stay there until an opening shows up. Now, if Sam has a cancellation, if anybody calls and says, can you reschedule me for another day? So what would you do? So let's say Lynn, who's right in the middle of the afternoon, she says she wants to come in later today. So I'm going to move her over to Andy at 4 o'clock. So I now have a big gap between 12 and 1 where George can be seen. So now if I press the hourglass button and check my request, I can choose George, go to the schedule, and Shortcuts will say, is there an opening? So there's still no opening. Let me take a look. I believe I have to tell Shortcuts to show me when there is an opening. So I'm going to go to Configuration, General, and I might have this disabled by default. So I will go to General Appointment Book. And let's take a look. There it is. Waitlist prompt. I want to make sure waitlist prompt is on. Use waitlist. Okay. So now when I choose the request for today, between 11 and 2, is there going by minimum duration? Oh, it's still set to Joe. Set it to Sam. Search. There we go. So I set it to Sam, and there was an opening. So I can call George and I say, yes, I have 2 openings. You can either come in at 12:30 or 12:45. George will say, I'll take 12:30, please. And I can book him in. And he is a salon regular. Definitely a request. So to think of a broader sense, with the waitlist, historically, your Fridays, your Saturdays, your Sundays, you're completely booked. For most businesses, you're actually booked a few weeks out on your Saturdays, your Sundays. And of course, those are the days that most customers absolutely want to have a Saturday afternoon, and you just know you're completely booked. So that's why Shortcuts has the ability to say, okay, for the next month or the next 2 months, I'm going to search from April to May. I only want Saturday openings. And the customer says specifically between 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And the customer wants a color service, perhaps full head of highlights. So with just this criteria, for the next 2 months, between 12 and 4 o'clock on a Saturday, are there any openings for highlights? I'm not telling Shortcuts which employees are open. I'm just saying, is there an opening? And if not, the customer can go into the wait list. And if for whatever reason there's a cancellation on a Saturday, Shortcuts will actually notify you. And the hourglass will have an alert on it to let you know that there is now a customer that can be moved into this spot. So that is how the waitlist works. So I'll go back. Now, before I go back to the presentation, one other thing. So let's say your book was completely full and you didn't necessarily see an opening. If you're using the new build of shortcuts 8.1 and you actually click on the time on the left side of the screen, shortcuts will allow you to search for a customer. It will allow you to choose a service. And if any employee has an opening during that specific time, shortcuts will actually try to find it for you. So I'm telling shortcuts George wants a haircut at 12:15, I think, with any employee. Is there an opening? And sure enough, shortcuts found it. Over on Stevie's column, it actually found that 15-minute gap and it put it in there. So again, in shortcuts 8.1, you do not have to click on a specific employee's column. You can instead click on the time, and shortcuts will assign it to the first available employee it sees that can perform that service in that time. So let's go back to the presentation. So now we've covered 3 more advanced things you can do with the appointment book in shortcuts. How to optimize your service blocks so that you can take advantage of your employee efficiency and book appointments in between other appointments. How to work with resources so that the correct room or table is booked for an appointment. And of course, how to use the appointment assistant, the waitlist, in case you ever get customers that always want to make an appointment on your busiest days. How do you put them on the waitlist, and how do shortcuts notify you that it's time to choose them? So we're going to open up the floor for questions. So on your GoToWebinar toolbar, you should see a little question, a little chat window pop up. So if you have any questions on anything we've covered today, go ahead and type them in, and I'll check the window on my side. And I don't think we're getting any questions. Okay. I hope that was easy enough. Now, again, if you're watching this video after the fact, and perhaps there was a step that wasn't clear to you on using the waitlist, you can always reach out to us, whether you're calling our 24-hour help desk, or if you have more specific questions on upgrading shortcuts or a step that was specific in this presentation, you can always reach out to us. Now, if you need to upgrade your shortcuts, let customer care know. Here's our contact info. You can call or email. And if you have questions on the actual process, things we covered during these classroom sessions, you can also contact education. Either myself or one of my colleagues will get back to you to talk about what we covered. And of course, you can always reach us on social media. So whether you visit Shortcuts on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, we will get back to you. So thank you all for attending the Tuesday classroom session. Every Tuesday we will have something that we cover in shortcuts, and for the next several sessions, we're going to be looking at advanced portions of the program. So if you're new to shortcuts or you're trying to get caught up, make sure you visit our YouTube channel. That's at Shortcuts USA, and watch our basics classes before you sit in on the next one, because we are building on things we've learned previously. So thank you all for attending, and I hope you all have a great day.